My beloved child, stop scrolling. Pause here for a moment, because what you are about to hear is not the kind of message you listen to casually while your mind is somewhere else. Something has shifted behind the scenes, something your eyes have not witnessed and your ears have not yet heard, but the consequences of it have already begun moving toward the person whose heart has been connected to yours. Your soulmate just received a call, and the voice on the other end was not calling to wish them peace. It was not calling to ask how they were. It was not calling because they missed them. It was a warning, a threat. A carefully chosen message designed to create fear around you. And my beloved child, before you allow your heart to panic, hear me clearly. This is a fictional spiritual story, a symbolic message about hidden fear, manipulation, betrayal, and the truth that eventually rises above deception. You are not being asked to fear the world around you. You are being asked to recognize the difference between genuine love and control. Because someone has been trying to make your soulmate afraid of getting closer to you. Someone has been whispering into the space between two hearts. Someone has been watching the story from a distance, studying reactions, waiting for the right moment to interfere, and they believed one frightening phone call would be enough to make your soulmate disappear from your life forever. They thought fear would finish what manipulation had started, but they made one mistake. They underestimated what happens when truth enters a situation that has been built on lies. Your soulmate answered the call without knowing what was coming. Perhaps they were somewhere quiet. Perhaps they were surrounded by ordinary sounds, completely unaware that within the next few minutes their understanding of someone close to them would begin to change. The number may have been unfamiliar. The voice may have been disguised by distance, technology, or deliberate restraint. At first, the caller sounded calm, too calm. That was the first strange thing. There was no anger, no obvious rage. Only a cold certainty. A sentence was spoken about you, then another, and then came the warning. Stay away from this person. Do not contact them. Do not tell them about this call. Do not ask questions. And if you ignore this warning, something will happen. Your soulmate froze. Not because the words were convincing, because something about the call felt wrong. The caller knew details, details they should not have known. Details about your connection, details about moments that had happened between you, details that made the threat sound believable, and for a brief moment, your soulmate's mind began racing. Who could know these things? Who had been talking? Who had been watching? Why would anyone care this much about whether the two of you came together? And then the caller said something that changed everything. They mentioned your name, not casually, not by accident. They said it with the confidence of someone who believed they had the right to speak about you. That was when your soulmate realized this was not a random threat. This was personal, very personal. And what happened next is the part nobody expected. Your soulmate did not obey. They did not immediately block you. They did not run from the connection. Instead, they became quiet. They listened. They asked one question. And the caller hesitated. That hesitation revealed more than the threat itself. Because fear is often loud, but guilt is quiet, and when your soulmate asked, "How do you know all of this?" The voice on the other end stopped. For several seconds, there was nothing, no answer, no explanation, only silence. Then the caller ended the conversation. And my beloved child, that silence was the first crack in the entire deception. Your soulmate stared at the phone. They replayed the conversation. They remembered the exact words. They began asking themselves questions they had avoided for a long time. Why would someone threaten me about this person? Why would someone care who I love? Why are they trying so desperately to keep me away? And the most important question began forming slowly. Who benefits if I believe this? That question is dangerous to anyone who survives through manipulation, because once a person begins questioning the motive behind the information they receive, control starts slipping away. Your soulmate had been told to fear you, but instead, they began fearing the person who was trying to control their choices. That distinction matters, because there is a difference between protection and possession. A person who genuinely wants to protect you gives you information and allows you to make your own decision. A person who wants to control you gives you fear and demands obedience. Your soulmate began to recognize that difference, and then something even more disturbing happened. They checked an old conversation. A detail from the call did not match what they remembered. One piece of information had been wrong, small, almost insignificant, but it was enough, because if the caller truly knew everything, why had they gotten that detail wrong? Your soulmate began looking deeper. They searched through old messages. They remembered conversations. They thought about the people who had previously warned them about you. And suddenly, a pattern began to emerge. The same phrases, the same concerns, the same accusations, the same carefully repeated ideas, different conversations, different days, but strangely similar words. That is when your soulmate realized something. Someone had been feeding people the same story, and that story had been designed to create distance. You were never simply being misunderstood, you were being interpreted for someone else. Your intentions were being translated, your silence was being explained, your actions were being described. And every time your soulmate was about to get close enough to discover the truth for themselves, another warning appeared, another doubt. Another reason to hesitate, another voice saying, "Don't trust them, my beloved child. Do you understand what this means? Someone has been trying to become the narrator of your relationship. They wanted to tell your soulmate what you meant before your soulmate could ask you. They wanted to explain your heart without ever standing inside it. They wanted your soulmate to fear a connection they did not control. And now the threat call has exposed something they never intended to reveal: their desperation. Because people who are confident in the truth do not usually need threats. They explain, they provide evidence, they allow questions. But manipulation does not work that way. Manipulation needs urgency. It needs confusion, it needs secrecy, it needs the victim to react before thinking, and your soulmate almost reacted, almost, but something inside them said, wait. That one word changed the direction of everything. Your soulmate did not sleep peacefully that night. Their mind returned to you, not to the threat, to you. They remembered your eyes, your voice, the things you said, the things you never said. They remembered the moments when they felt safe with you. They remembered the moments when they pushed you away, and for the first time, they wondered whether they had been protecting themselves from a danger that never came from you. That thought hurt, because it opened a door to another possibility. What if I was wrong? What if I believed the wrong person? What if the person warning me about them is the person I should have questioned, and that question became impossible to put back? The next morning, your soulmate reached out to someone they trusted. Not you, not yet. They wanted another perspective. They described the call, they explained the threat, and they asked whether this person had ever heard anything similar. The response was immediate: silence, a long silence. Then came a sentence your soulmate did not expect. I think you need to know who has been behind this. The atmosphere changed. Your soulmate asked for the name. The other person hesitated. Again, another silence. Another moment where truth stood at the edge of someone's mouth, and finally, the name was spoken. Your soulmate knew that person. They had trusted that person. They had listened to that person. They had perhaps even defended that person when others questioned their intentions. But now the pieces began falling into place. The person connected to the threat was not a stranger, not some distant enemy, not someone who appeared out of nowhere. The person was close enough to know things, close enough to influence decisions, close enough to know exactly which fears to activate. And my beloved child, this is where the title of this story becomes much darker. Because the predator was not simply someone who wanted to hurt your soulmate, the predator was someone who had been feeding on control, someone who became powerful whenever you and your soulmate were uncertain, someone who benefited emotionally from your distance, someone who needed your soulmate confused. Themselves as a predator. That is what makes this kind of person dangerous in a story like this. They can call their control concern. They can call their interference protection. They can call their jealousy love. They can call their manipulation advice. And because their behavior is wrapped in familiar language, people do not always recognize what is happening. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize it now. They are remembering every time this person told them to stay away from you, every time they suggested that you could not be trusted, every time they appeared immediately after you and your soulmate had a meaningful interaction, every time they somehow knew things that had not been publicly discussed. It was always subtle. Never enough to prove anything, until now. The threat call changed the equation, because the caller knew too much, and the person your soulmate suspected had access to those details. Now your soulmate wanted proof, not feelings, not guesses, proof. So they did something unexpected. They called the person they suspected, and they did not accuse them. They simply asked a question. Did you make a call about me? The answer came too quickly. No, your soulmate noticed something. The person denied it before asking what call they were talking about. That was strange, because your soulmate had not explained the call. They had only asked whether a call had been made. How did they know? Another silence. Your soulmate said nothing. The other person began explaining. Too much. Far too much. They started giving reasons nobody had requested. They started talking about you. they started repeating the same story that had appeared in the threat call, and your soulmate realized they were hearing the same script from two different directions. That was the moment the illusion began collapsing. The person on the phone realized they had said too much. They tried to recover. They changed their explanation. They claimed they were only trying to help. They said they were worried. They said they had heard things. They said they were afraid your soulmate would get hurt. But your soulmate asked one question. Then why did the caller threaten me? Silence. This time, the silence was different. It was not confusion. It was exposure. And somewhere deep inside, your soulmate already knew. The person they were speaking to might not have made the call themselves. But they knew about it. They knew more than they should. And that meant there was another person involved. A messenger. A middleman. Someone who had been willing to carry the threat, and now. Your soulmate understood the scale of the manipulation. This was not one person's opinion. It was a chain. One person told another. Another passed it along. Someone else added details. Someone else exaggerated. And by the time the story reached your soulmate, it had become something almost unrecognizable. You had become the villain in a story you never wrote, and your soulmate had become the frightened character being told to run from you. But heaven sees what human beings hide, and truth does not become false because people repeat a lie with confidence. There is something written into every deception, a weakness, a contradiction. A moment when the story cannot explain itself. Your soulmate found that contradiction, and now they are looking for the original source. That search is going to lead somewhere unexpected, because the person who initiated the fear was not acting only out of jealousy. There was another motive, a deeper one. Something they believed they would lose if you and your soulmate became close again, something they had been protecting, something connected to the past, something your soulmate was never supposed to discover. That is why the threat had to happen now, not months ago, not years ago, now, because someone realized your soulmate was beginning to remember, beginning to question, beginning to move emotionally toward you again, and that terrified the person who had benefited from the separation. They could feel their influence weakening. They could sense that your soulmate was no longer accepting every explanation, so they escalated. They moved from suggestion to intimidation, and that escalation became their mistake. Because fear creates urgency, urgency creates mistakes, and mistakes leave evidence. Your soulmate has started collecting those pieces. They have not told you everything yet. They may not even know what everything means. But they are watching, listening, comparing, and there is one particular detail from the threat call they cannot forget. The caller mentioned something that only 3 people should have known: your soulmate, you, and the person who was present when that moment happened. That means the circle is smaller than anyone thought, and when your soulmate realized this, they remembered something else. A person who was standing nearby that day, a person who seemed completely uninterested, a person who said almost nothing, a person everyone overlooked, and suddenly, that person's silence became suspicious. My beloved child, sometimes the person who appears least involved is the one who has been carrying the most information, the one who watches, the one who remembers, the one who waits. And now that person is about to become important, because your soulmate is going to ask them about that old moment. They are going to ask a simple question: what did you see that day? And the answer is going to change everything, not because it will reveal a new enemy, but because it will reveal that the person you thought was responsible may have been taking orders from someone else. There was someone behind the scenes, someone with influence, someone whose name has not yet been spoken, someone who never needed to make the threat themselves because they had learned how to make other people do their dirty work. And this is the revelation that has been waiting beneath the entire story. The predator may not be the person who made the call. The predator may be the person who taught them what to say. The person who understood exactly what would frighten your soulmate. The person who knew exactly which memory to twist. The person who knew exactly what to tell them about you. And when your soulmate finally discovers who that person is, they are going to remember every warning they ever received in a completely different way. But there is one more secret. The person behind the fear has been closer to your soulmate than anyone realizes. They have been present during family conversations. They have heard private discussions. They have watched your connection from the beginning. And they know something about your soulmate's past that gives them extraordinary influence. They have used that knowledge before. They may use it again. But this time, the strategy is failing. Because your soulmate is no longer asking, "Why should I stay away from you?" They are asking a much more dangerous question: "Why are you so afraid of me finding out the truth?" And when that question is finally answered, someone's entire story is going to fall apart. Because the threat call was never really about protecting your soulmate from you. It was about protecting a secret from your soulmate, and that secret has your name written all over it. Your soulmate has just opened an old message. They are staring at the screen. There is something there they never noticed before: a timestamp, a name, a sentence. And suddenly they realize the warning they received years ago could not have been true. Because the message proves something happened before the person who warned them ever claimed to know about it. Your soulmate's hands are shaking. They scroll upward, one message, then another, and at the very top of the conversation is the first clue. The clue that reveals who started the entire chain of deception. They recognize the name immediately, and when they see it, they whisper only 4 words: "I trusted you." Then the phone rings again, and this time, your soulmate answers knowing exactly who might be on the other side.